The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining us. Hopefully you can hear us. Not exactly sure if you can.
Yeah, you're good, Lance.
1 second. Okay, all right. Thank you for joining us. I'm Lindsay Hirschman with the Cassini Collection, and we have Birgit Becker from Windhoek. Ultimate Safaris is joining us. Birgit, are you there?
Hello everybody from sunny and warm Namibia.
Yeah, we don't want to hear about that right now. So what we're going to...
It's a little bit cold today.
Okay, right. Well, it's raining and probably about 50 degrees in Seattle, so big surprise there. So what we're going to do, Birgit and I are going to sort of tag team through the presentation, and just a warning, we have a lot of ground to cover, so we're going to do our very best to keep this to an hour. If you need to bow out or step away, please know that we are recording it, and it will be archived on the Cassini Collection website. And under our multimedia tab, Tad will do that shortly here after the presentation in the next day or two. So don't stress if you have to step away. You'll be able to go back. We just want to be as comprehensive as possible. So let's get started. What we're going to do is Birgit's going to give a little bit of an overview on Namibia, and we're going to explain kind of the history of Namibia and information about Namibia as well as ultimate theory. So Birgit just joined us this last, well, I guess the end of last year. She has been in the business for about 17 years, right, Birgit?
19 now this year.
Oh, nice. So Birgit is an amazing resource in terms of information on Namibia properties and designing itineraries. She's come on board at Ultimate Safaris. Formerly, she was with Wilderness. She's come on board as our marketing director. So that's the role that she's playing with us now. And of course, Tad and I are the North American sales reps for Ultimate Safaris. I've traveled extensively in Namibia. I spent a month there last year. That was my third trip, and with my family, which was amazing. And Tad has also traveled there, and he's headed back in May. So let's get started. All right, Birgit, you wanna do the Namibia overview?
Yeah, I know the best part. We're having a good year. It's 25 years independence now. We just celebrated on the 21st of March. So lots of reasons to celebrate here in Namibia. We've got a wonderfully stable political system. We've got a new president, which we're all very excited about. He's got some amazing ideas for the future. But our past presidents have also been extremely insightful, you know, curbed corruption, you know, economy is growing. There's a lot of things happening here. And even though the economy is growing, it's still very much taking care of the wildlife and the people, and I know we talk about it all the time, but we're very proud of our unfenced areas, our free roaming wildlife, you know, our increasing rhino and elephant population. And whilst we'll never have the population of animals like in East Africa, you know, you're talking about thousands and thousands of wildebeest, I think the stories behind each and every individual animal you see in Namibia adds a bit of specialty to it all, makes it a little bit of a deeper experience when you see the harsh environment they survive in and how these Namibian animals live in harmony with the Namibian people. I'm not going to go through all the bullet points. You can read that yourself. But we have some great stories to tell. It's all about the stories we have to share.
I think it's interesting. It's interesting, too, to point out that first bullet point to provide context. Namibia is the size of California, Oregon, and Washington combined. And what's the population now, Birgit? It's about a little bit around 2 million, right?
2.3 and counting.
Yeah.
The capital city has 330,000 people.
So it's smaller than the city of Seattle by about 700,000, the greater Seattle area, yet it's the size of the entire west coast of the U.S. So those are some interesting facts to provide some context in terms of how big this country actually is. Just a little bit about Ultimate Safaris. It's a company that started, was born a merger of two Namibian companies, and Namibian owned and operated, and very much, very proudly Namibian. And 100% of our business is trade only. You'll see on the website, we'll show you at the end, Birgit's working on it right now. It hopefully will launch very soon, a full password protected agent area. You'll see that we don't have rates or any of that on the website. It's designed as fodder, but not as a booking site at all. Also, Ultimate Safaris is a DMC. We own vehicles, full fleet, which we'll show you, and staff our guides and our office staff. We aren't affiliated with any of the safari lodges. So when it comes to being objective and booking what is best for your traveler, for their interests, for their budget, we're really good at doing that. And something that Tristan Cali is the owner of Ultimate. He is so proud of the vehicles, as he should be. They're really state of the art. Birgit's going to tell you a little bit more about that. But I think now this latest round of new vehicles has really, really been fine-tuned. It's pretty amazing. We also staff one of the best teams of naturalist guides, I think, in Africa. Award-winning. They've been recognized by National Geographic. They've been recognized by the Good Safari Guide Awards. Pretty amazing team. And as well, just being Namibian and operating in Namibia for so long, the team at Ultimate really has a little black book of contacts with, in terms of getting into properties that maybe are waitlisted, or working with conservationists and researchers. So there's a lot of really cool options. Plus, because of the volume of business that we do, we have really well-established relationships with a lot of the lodges, from most of the classic Namibia properties, wilderness, any variety of accommodations. I think we have some very competitive rates with. So there's a full list of reasons on the website, but I think these are really important ones. So Birgit's gonna explain a little bit about the vehicles and also the team at Ultimate.
Yeah, I'm here, standing by. Are we going to go to the next slide? I'll say, okay, so first of all, we guarantee window seats for all our guests. So this, what you see in front of you, is actually the 10-seater vehicle, which means we're never going to take more than 8 people in the car. You know, we're not going to force anybody to rotate with the bench. So we've got a range of 10-seaters and 8-seater vehicles. We're phasing out the smaller Land Cruisers because we realize people really like the idea of the pop-tops. All our Land Cruisers come with these pop-tops, great vantage point for game viewing. All of them are air-conditioned. All of them come with this little personal library that you see here. They're all getting a personal water bottle, and the library contains documents such as species checklist, birding checklist, just general fact sheets about Namibia, you know, to keep the guides honest when they tell about the stories here. Also very important for us is we've got a charging point, a 220-volt charging point inside the vehicle. So as long as guests bring their own adapter, we've got the inverter already, so great for charging their digital cameras and the smartphones. And we've got about 10, 11 vehicles of them. Now, really exciting is that our cars are customized and modified according to our specification. And we used to use a local bus builder in Windhoek, but he decided to retire, and it took some time finding a suitable alternative. We found one in East Africa. It does mean sending our cars all the way to East Africa, but the bonus is, and trust me, we don't have a shortage of volunteers, is we just need 2 guys to drive the cars all the way to East Africa, hang around there for 5-6 weeks until the cars are modified. In the meantime, we actually have our 2 senior guides there. They hang out with Alex Walker Syrian camps. So they're getting this whole guide exchange program happening. They're learning how things are different in East Africa, how spoiled they are over there. They share some of their learnings from Namibia and hopefully bring some of their learnings back to Namibia, which means our team isn't just experienced within the Namibia context, but a world view, a little world outside Namibia. I mean, Jason, you see in the bottom left, has been to Ireland on a guide exchange program for the ATWS. Paris has been to San Francisco. He's in the top middle one. He looks unimpressed, but trust me, he's a really charming, funny guy. So we've got we really do have the best people there. And yeah, me in the bottom right there with my 19 years now of experience. I can confidently say that not just in Namibia, but maybe even in Southern Africa, we've got some very special people.
Very cool. Yeah, Orlando's in the bottom middle there, and he's the former captain of the Namibian national soccer team. So he literally has been all over Africa. I think he told me there's only 2 countries in Africa he hasn't visited, all over Europe. It's pretty cool to travel with him. You drive through the countryside in Namibia, and people actually recognize him and run up to him to greet him. He would, I think, be considered quite famous. He has a road, a street in Windhoek named after him. So just really great personalities. So most of what Ultimate does is FIT and custom safari planning. That is our bread and butter. That's our specialty. However, we do have a handful of kind of scheduled safaris, group trips that you can sell into, and kind of pre-designed trips. So I'm going to just mention those really briefly. Our 7-day fly-in is not a group trip, but it does follow a specific itinerary, and you can just sell that flat out as it is. The rack rate is indicated there. However, we do have, you would be getting a net rate, an operator preferred rate. And this property really touches on major highlights in Namibia, Volvadons and Damaraland, Etosha, and also visits the Africat Center to learn about some of the conservation issues in Namibia, which are very, very important and at the forefront. And then we've also worked on overflight of the sand dunes in Sossusvlei, and it's a very well-rounded safari. We've kept it a little on the short side because we find that with this particular trip, travelers are adding Namibia as a secondary safari destination in southern Africa, whether they're partnering it with Botswana or South Africa. So we have kept it just a smidge on the short side. I think 7 days in Namibia is way too short, but that's just me. Another really exciting trip. This is a scheduled departure. We have departures of our 10-day Skeleton Coast and Kaokoveld Conservancy Safari that runs from May to September. That area is quite seasonal because there are some rivers that during the quote-unquote rainy season in Namibia do become impassable. So this trip is actually up for the We Are Africa Innovation Awards. So for those of you who are going to We Are Africa, you can vote for this trip as one of the top choices for the experience category. And it's really the first safari of its kind in terms of operating in that area of the far northwest, and also being a Namibian-owned company that's operating it, and we're utilizing all conservancy or joint venture establishments. Birgit's going to talk a little bit because she was just at the Skeleton Coast at Waneb Camp, the new wilderness property, so she's going to talk a little bit more about this in just a moment. But that's a minimum of 2 packs and a maximum of 6 on that. Then our most popular scheduled departure is a overview safari, 9 days. It's a guaranteed departure. I have to warn you, it is almost sold out for 2015. It has become insanely popular. It's guaranteed to run with a minimum of 1 client, and we stay inside Sossusvlei National Park at the Sossus Dune Lodge, so the travelers have essentially 24-hour access to the park. Water sports activities in Swakopmund, tracking desert elephant, a visit to Tweefelfontein, Himba. It's a really cool trip, game viewing in Etosha, and a day visit to Africat. It's an excellent, excellent value. You can see the rate right there, especially now with the favorable exchange rate. So right now we're working on securing 2016 space, but keep in mind it sells out really fast. So stay tuned for that. For those dates to come out, we'll launch those. So we're going to kind of get started on properties, and I'm going to go through these fairly quickly. If people have questions, please note them, and we'll answer questions at the end. You can type them in there the panel that GoToWebinar has. So Galton House is a great little boutique property in Windhoek. 8 rooms. It's a bed and breakfast style accommodation. However, we do serve meals as well. It's just a nice little place to get started and really save some money for your clients to spend when they're out in the bush. On the higher end, the Olive Exclusive is very close by in Windhoek as well, and that does provide probably, I think, the most luxurious boutique option in Windhoek. It's really beautiful. It has beautiful views and plunge pools. The restaurant there is quite good. They really pride themselves in that. So even if your travelers are staying elsewhere in Windhoek, they can go and dine at the restaurant. So what we're going to do, Birgit's going to talk a little bit about Okonjima, but what I want to say is in the last several years that Ultimate has been working pretty heavily in the U.S. market, we have found traditionally operators in the States were selling Namibia as a circuit going clockwise and kind of starting in Sossusvlei and going around the country clockwise. We have found that with the North American travelers, most Americans really want to see wildlife straight out of the gate. So what we've started doing, and we've been really successful with this and get really great feedback from the guests, is to start with the wildlife element, and the Americans kind of get their twitchiness out of their system when it comes to game viewing. And we usually include Africat at the very beginning because it's so close to Windhoek, and Etosha, and then work our way into the more esoteric game viewing and kind of build up to tracking the desert rhino, tracking the desert elephant, perhaps the desert adapted lions, and then ending with kind of that serene, amazing, ethereal landscape of Sossusvlei and the oryx and ostrich. And we've been pretty successful. So we've designed this webinar to kind of follow that routing. So that's why it's set up the way it is. Birgit, do you want to talk about Okonjima, please?
Yeah, I was there last June again, and they constantly innovate and developing. The bush camp's actually currently being closed. They're extending on the chalets. They're opening it up a bit more. At the same time, they're getting rid of some of the open panels to make it a little bit more wind resistant. Okonjima is a welfare organization. You are going to see cheetahs in large enclosures. You are going to see the leopards and animals with usually radio collars. But the whole story is behind how these were cattle farmers and how they realized that they have to find a way that cattle farmers and wildcats can live in harmony, which is part of the success of why we have now the largest population of free-roaming cheetahs, is from individuals like that. So it's important that people realize that, you know, it's and animals in enclosures, but 80% or 90% of the animals do actually get released back into nature. And the best of all is they've got a really nice choice of accommodation from the Okonjima Villa, where Brangelina actually stayed once. So really exquisite, private, exclusive experience with own chef, down to the bush camps, the bush suites, you know. So the choice is really for everybody, down to now the Okonjima Plains camp, which is probably the first family-friendly camp that Okonjima has. So these are the bush camps chalets. They're going to change. They're going to make them bigger. They're going to get rid of some of the front panels because in the evenings it's so cold, very few people actually sleep with them open. They're going to still keep 1 or 2 panels. So hopefully by April, end of April, we're going to get new images of the new bush camp. I'm just on the next slide, Tad. So yeah, the focus is very much on, it's a great experience to also start and getting over your jet lag. The activities start in the morning, you return to camp by brunch, you know, come back in the afternoon for a short afternoon drive. So it's not so hectic, because trust me, the rest of the itinerary in Namibia is going to get hardcore.
Yeah, I love Africat. And when Birgit says enclosures, the property is really, really big.
Yeah.
For people who have been to see the rhino in Olpejida in Kenya, it doesn't feel like that. It actually feels like you are in a game park.
Absolutely. I know, but Namibians, if you always say anything that's 1,000 hectares, you go, oh, that's a small reserve.
Yeah, it's actually, you are in, your clients are in a game drive vehicle out tracking the wildlife. So before I went, I was expecting it to feel much more like, yeah, a lot smaller, and it doesn't. It's really great, and it is one of the only places I'm aware of that you can track cheetah on foot, and I really enjoyed it. It really, I think at the beginning of a trip, it really sets the stage for the conservation efforts in Namibia and tells the story about that. So it's a really great kind of out of the gate. It's an easy, quick drive up there, paved roads, and like Birgit said, it's a good place to kind of get your jet lag worn off and get started. I'm going to talk about Etosha a little bit. So Etosha is a very interesting game viewing destination, and I find for travelers who have really experienced a lot of wilderness areas in Africa, they've maybe traveled in Botswana or Zambia, East Africa, they can probably skip Etosha unless they have a specific reason to go there, and they could probably focus on the more remote and really unique aspects of Namibia. However, for people who would like to see Etosha and do a whole overview of the country, the game viewing is really, it's quite good. And because of the water holes, it provides a very interesting game experience that's different than what you would probably see other places. So what we like to do is a combination of the eastern and western sides of the pan. And we do then spend a day, so your clients are in a private vehicle with their guide going through the park, and take a picnic lunch and spend the day in the park. But we do like to pair it with the private game reserves on either side. Onguma is one of them. Onguma is a private reserve, so they have the exclusivity that you would expect from a private property. Treetop camp we use exclusively on our scheduled trip, and there's only 4 of these treetop chalets. They're really beautiful, so it's very private. Onguma also has the tented camp I've stayed at. It's lovely, overlooking a waterhole, quite comfortable. Onguma also has a family-friendly property, and they have the fort, which is great for honeymooners. Also at that end, not in a game area, however very close to the park entrance, is Mashara. Mashara offers pretty much 2 properties that we work with. The tents are quite beautiful, and it's a great value. And then they also have the Mashara Villa, which is quite stunning. I love it, and the price point is hard to beat. So what we would do is we would start people coming from Africat usually, and have them stay on the eastern side of Etosha, work their way through the park, visit the water holes. The deeper into the park that you get, travelers kind of diminish, and it ends up being a very, it's a really nice full day game drive experience. Then we work our way to the western side of the park, down towards Anderson's Gate and the Ngava Reserve, which Birgit's going to talk about.
Yep. So Ngava Game Reserve is still the only luxury lodge option in southern Etosha. And Anderson's Ongava Tankam, Ongava Lodge, they all offer something really different. Ongava Tankam is probably the most bushy experience. Great waterhole right there. Wouldn't send kids under 12 there, even though they have a great family unit. You do want something a little bit more safer. A personal favorite for mine is Anderson's Camp. Pure, obviously that's just the inside of Ongava Tent Camp, really spacious. When I was there last, we had brown hyena walking right in front there. The little Ongava Suites, 3 suites, very exclusive, private plunge pool overlooking the Mopani forest down there. The only lodge, I think one of the few lodges in Namibia that actually has a bathtub. Most lodges in Namibia are very water conscious. Then Anderson's, I was talking about it. I really like this camp. It's really rustic. It's really quirky. But it's got 2 amazing water holes and an underground water hide. So if you have photographers, send them here. It has a better water hole than Okakweo. Everybody keeps raving on about the Okakweo water hole. But Anderson's has wildlife come through there all the time, including black and white rhino and lions. So it is a bit more on the rustic side, but I think it makes well up for the experience.
the game viewing in Etosha is quite spectacular.
They've got a healthy population of lions there as well, and black and white rhino, as I mentioned. So if you have guests who are really keen on the rhino and the lions and things like that, there is a rhino research program going on there. There is a lion tagging and research program going on there. They even started a leopard research program. So it isn't just about a game viewing, but there's also some interesting stories behind the research going on this private game reserve.
So the other area that we've really been focusing a lot on recently is that northwest corner of Namibia, the Kaokoveld. And Tristan and the team at Ultimate really truly believe that this is kind of the heart and soul of Namibia in terms of the culture, just the experiences there are intrinsically Namibian. So Birgit's going to talk a little bit about this area because she was up there not that long ago.
Yeah, no, Windhoek is my favorite camp. And now that I don't work for Wilderness, you can take my word, it really is a special, special place. Not just only unique design of the camp, not only because of the Skeleton Coast experience, which for many people is quite a highlight, but it is really about the desert adaptation of the lions, the stories of research behind the lions with desert lion info. There's a brown hyena research going on there. When I was there, they actually had these filmmakers busy filming the 5 musketeers, which are these 5 lions. Stunning scenery. I could spend a whole week there. I was there for 4 nights, and I could have stayed longer. The accommodation is really stylish. It really fits in well with the scenery. It just creeps into your heart, and yeah, it's looking very, very full for this year. And you have to stay 3 nights, because the 3 nights includes then 1 coastal activity. People do expect to have a bit of a coastal activity, seeing the shipwrecks. It is very weather dependent, but the camp on the ground has been making plans such as driving guests to the coast and maybe flying them back. They try really hard to get the guests to experience the Skeleton Coast as well as the Windhoek River drives. So this is the one place not to miss in Namibia.
Sorry, let me interrupt. This trip that Birgit's talking about, that she'll continue talking about, is the conservancy safari that's up for the We Are Africa Awards. So that's why we're focusing on this area right now.
See, one of the excitement of the Skeleton Coast and Kaokoveld Conservancy Safari is that it's probably the first luxury accommodated safari to the northwest. Until now, most accommodation was rustic, or you go in camping convoys. But we've been very fortunate that with time now, a lot of luxury conservancy joint venture lodges popped up. Okairongo Elephant Lodge is one of those. It's in Poros. It's the only luxury lodge in the Poros area, so we utilize that one. Great again for the elephant drive. Great for Ovahimba experience. Just, complementing what is truly the heart of Namibia. Then you can't get any further than Okairongo River Lodge. Private charter or a full-day convoy from Poros. It really gives you that feeling of being away from it all, overlooking the Kunene River, and style and luxury. So, and then from there we continue back down south. You see, very stylish, perfect. It's so surreal. Now the Ovahimba people are, Namibians by nature are very proud people, traditional. We keep to our traditions, not just to dress up for tourists, but truly because they're proud people. And the Northwest is all about meeting these very extraordinary people. Especially the women are beautiful, and the whole adaptation, smearing themselves with the clay butter to give themselves sun protection. The whole tradition behind all the hair, the boys' hair, the 2 split braided hair means something. Everything has a meaning to their tradition. And I guess because they live so remote from, missionaries and, various travelers coming through, they were able to keep proudly to their tradition. So let's move on to the next one. And then we return via Grootback Lodge on the Skeleton Coast Kaokoveld Conservancy Safari. Just the most stunning landscape. I mean, when you look at this picture, you're looking back into the future, the past, millions and millions of years in the past. And Grootback is also a very successful joint venture lodge, very affordable, overlooking the Grootback Pass. There are actually rhinos in the area. There's also Vahimba trekking, visits, elephant trekking. So it's a good end to what is truly a remarkable adventure in the northwest of Namibia.
So that itinerary can be booked, like I said, between May and September, and it is a scheduled group departure. We have dates and information on the Cassini website, and it is a minimum of 2 packs, and that trip could be requested on a private basis as well, and we can price it that way. So from the Kaokoveld area, we're going to head down into Damaraland. So if your travelers don't have time to go into the extreme northwest and the Kunene and Kaokoveld area, from Etosha, Damaraland is generally the next area that people visit. It's a really incredibly scenic area. It's one of my favorite places in Namibia. Cultural history is really interesting. Every year, Ultimate sends vehicles and guides out just to do their own exploratory adventures, and several years back, our guides came upon a village of Himba that came a little bit further south than we normally find Himba in the Damaraland area. So we have been working with them through our trust that we'll tell you about later, and have a really great relationship with that village. So we have very authentic experiences. I visited it last year, and it was very cool. And the Himba are amazing. The women have an incredibly hilarious sense of humor, a great attitude. They're quite sarcastic and flippant. They're really cool gals. So that whole area, Tweefelfontein also is in Damaraland, which is a World Heritage Site. It can be visited from a few properties in the Damaraland area. I think it's really worthwhile. I really enjoy it. It's very interesting. It doesn't take that long to tour. So you can gauge your traveler's level of interest in something like that, but I think it's absolutely worthwhile. Damaraland, the landscapes are spectacular. The colors, every single mountaintop looks different. As you come around the corner from one area, you reach an area like this where Mawani camp is, and just these massive boulders, and the property is built nestled in between these boulders. It's a really special area. Mawani has 12 suites, and they have a honeymoon suite. It's one of my favorite properties for honeymooners. The setting is hard to beat. They have a sundowner spot that I think might take the cake for the best sundowner spot in Africa. The little sister property to Mawani is Kipwe, and Kipwe is probably the best property if your travelers are really interested in Tweefelfontein and maybe they want to stay and have really direct access to Tweefelfontein for a specific reason. It's also a really nice price point. It's great for small groups. There's 10 suites. Kind of same thing, built into the boulders. It's a really beautiful property. This burned down in 2010, I think, and was rebuilt. So it's quite nice. It's really beautiful. Mawani and Kipwe are great properties to head out and do desert adapted elephant trekking from, as well as Damaraland Camp. Damaraland Camp, I think, is a little bit too far to do Tweefelfontein based at the property. It's a long drive. However, for hiking, for tracking the desert elephant, and just for the landscapes, Damaraland Camp is really beautiful. They also have very comfortable family units. I stayed in one last year with my family, and although this isn't necessarily marketed as a family property, you can pay additional for a private vehicle, and we found with my son that the camp was quite family friendly, and the staff was absolutely amazing. Damaraland Camp is owned by the community and mostly run and managed by the community, and it has a really nice feel. It's one of my favorite properties, actually. Then Desert Rhino Camp. Birgit, do you want to talk a little bit about that and the experience of tracking the rhino, please?
Absolutely. No, this is really one of the most special places. You wouldn't assume so, but with the tented camp layout and stuff. But I mean, everybody's really sensitive about the plight of the rhinos. And Desert Rhino Camp was at the forefront of working as the first camp to work closely with Save the Rhino Trust, who are based on the Palmbach concession. They're not employed by the camp. The whole deal is around continuing their research and conservation according to the rhino, but they communicate to the guests and the camp guide about what's happening. So what happens is our guests go on a normal game drive with the camp guide. Our guide would accompany where necessary. Then radio contact with the rhino trackers, who usually leave at 3 or 4 a.m. that morning to look for their rhino. As soon as the rhino trackers found the rhinos, they tell us where they are, or we meet at the meeting point, and the rhino trackers take over the whole tracking. That's why you can never have the rhino tracking done on a private basis or for kids under 12, because for that moment, that small group is guided by the Save the Rhino trackers. There's a condition how many times a day they may see a rhino. At all times, safety concerns is important. You walk very rough terrain. There's no path. You never drive off the road. But then you have these kind of encounters. I mean, it's done very safe. The black rhino is quite blind, and we make sure we're off wind and all those things. And the rhino trackers share with them how do they identify them, how successful are we with the protection of the rhinos. And that's part of the charm of Desert Rhino Camp. And even if you don't see a rhino, you are so engaged in the whole stories behind it. And the landscape is spectacular. Hartmann zebra, there are elephants in the area, cheetah and leopard, surprisingly, though I have never seen one, but the other guests do. So it is actually quite a rich wildlife area, for what is a very harsh desert environment. And it's also one of my favorites.
Very cool. Yeah, I have yet to do that. That's next on my list when I go. I think Tad's doing that on his trip in May. So from Damaraland, we generally head down to the coast. And Swakopmund is a really interesting place. It is literally kind of like a German village. It's a very odd place. I like it, odd in a good way. So what we usually do, it's kind of the middle of the trip by this point, and it's nice for travelers to kind of brush the dust off and be able to, explore the town on their own and eat some seafood and do laundry and check Wi-Fi and all that kind of stuff. However, there's also a lot to do in Swakop. A lot of people kind of overlook it, but we find that Swakop and Walvis Bay really, in terms of the water sports, in terms of the culture, we have a great cycling tour that we do in the township in Swakopmund. There's also the Living Desert tour that is a really cool adventure that focuses on the smaller things, the spiders, geckos, snakes, chameleons, lizards, that's outside of Swakop in the sand dunes. For those of you who haven't been to Swakopmund, this is kind of the beginning of the coastal sand dunes that reach down to Sossusvlei. And it's a very interesting area. There are quite a few accommodation options. There's the Hansa Hotel, which is a traditional hotel, and it's for groups and for people who want a hotel experience. It's totally fine. The Cornerstone Guest House is one of our little favorites. It's privately owned. We have a great working relationship with them, and it just has 7 rooms, and it's a quaint little guest house. There's also the Swakopmund guest house, and it's a very safe town. It's very easy to walk around, so it's kind of a nice midpoint. What we do try to do is we find that the flight from Swakopmund down into Sossusvlei is so incredibly scenic that we recommend that people do that flight. At this point, they either will say goodbye to their Ultimate Safaris guide if they've been doing a privately guided driving safari, and we work with the properties in Sossusvlei very closely to take over the guiding experience there, or they can fly in the vehicle, can deadhead through to Sossusvlei and meet up with them again. But The sand dunes are really spectacular, and we do a few things pretty differently. All of our vehicles are kitted out with full dining facilities, not just a little pop-up table for tea and coffee, but in Sossusvlei, your travelers are actually treated to a full hot breakfast. Where we have the full kit, so they have omelets and pancakes and whatever they want. So it's a pretty special experience. Of course, there is also the opportunity to do the hot air ballooning. It's really best to do the hot air ballooning from Sossus Dune Lodge, which is the NWR property inside the park, which we'll show you photos of all of these momentarily. The wilderness properties, Little Kulala, and also the And Beyond property. Vulvadons is just a bit too far. It's too long of a drive for such an early morning. So when we send travelers to Vulvadons, the focus there is really on the Namibian and not so much on Sossusvlei. These kind of vistas are what your clients can expect. The colors are absolutely amazing, so beautiful. The wildlife is awesome. Birgit's going to tell us a bit about some of the properties.
Yeah, so Little Kulala, I mean, it's got great personal access. It's got plunge pools, air conditioning. I think a definite highlight here is the sleep out on the star deck, you know, so you've got your luxury suite there, but a lot of people just want to sleep under the blankets, open skies. That's exactly that. And they've even set it up for honeymooners, like a private dining up there, and then they can crash in the bed that evening. And if it gets a bit too wild and the stars are a bit too bright, they can always go back down to their suite, which is right underneath this deck. But that, I think, is definitely the highlight. Then, you know, we've got, of course, the other option is the Sossus Dune Lodge. It's on the other side of the price spectrum. This one we select because it's the only lodge in the entire area where you can enter the park before sunrise. In the olden days, you could get a special photo permit. That doesn't get approved anymore if you stay outside the park. This camp is inside the park. It is a Namibia Wildlife Resort Lodge. So they also manage Okakweo, and therefore there's a hit and miss on the hospitality, the food and dining, and the hosting. You know, this is a very nicely set up room picture. But when they are with an ultimate guide, he manages the, you know, the experience down there. And that's why we have this lodge on our ultimate Namibia trip, because it is just such a great location. And if anywhere it matters as much, it's in Sossusvlei. Location, location, location. Get to the dunes as soon as you can to really enjoy that sunrise, that redness that comes out of the dunes in the early mornings.
This is also a great property for photographers and for people who are interested in going into the park after hours if there is a full moon. So last year we had a National Geographic staff member and photographer go in and shoot at dead Flay with the full moon. So that's where this lodge comes into play. And it can, the rooms are fine. I've seen it. I haven't stayed there. They're totally fine. But we are very careful to manage that experience if guests stay there. Then heading down to the Namibian, it's a very interesting private reserve, and it's one of the largest reserves in southern Africa with over 200,000 hectares, and it has 4 different habitats. It's really, really beautiful, and for me, Sossusvlei is amazing, and it's really pretty hard to miss, to not put in an itinerary. However, travelers who have the time to do both the Sossusvlei in the actual Namib Nakluft Park, as well as doing the Namibian Nature Reserve, that's what I recommend, because it is so incredibly scenic. And I feel like when you are staying in the Namibian, you feel like you're in the dunes. You're sleeping in the dunes. This is the And Beyond Sossusvlei Desert Lodge, which is very beautiful. It's probably my favorite property in terms of the ones that have access to Sossusvlei. The rooms are air-conditioned, which matters some of the year in Namibia because it does get really hot down there. They also have this beautiful star viewing window above the bed, so you can just lay in bed and view the stars. And the Namibian is one of the dark sky reserves, which is it's an organization that has identified the best star viewing areas in the world. And the Namibian was the first one in Africa. So it's pretty incredible. In addition to the star viewing, there are quad bikes, and they've been very careful about the footprint that the quad bikes are leaving, and you actually go into the sand dunes and ride in the red sand dunes, so it's pretty awesome. And then there is a really great observatory at the lodge, and they have an astronomer in residence, and after dinner you can go up, and it was pretty awesome. I mean, we saw the rings on Saturn and saw a lot of things that I had never seen. It's a amazing telescope. So I think that's a highlight. Then heading down to Volvidans. Volvidans, like I said, we don't recommend that people stay at Volvidans and go into Sossusvlei. It's just too far. So if your clients want to do Sossusvlei, we recommend visiting Sossusvlei, being based in the Sossusvlei area, and then heading down to Volvidans for a couple of nights. Because what you get at Volvidans, as you can see at Dunes Lodge, you are in the middle of the sand dunes. So for me, Volvidans is really special for people who want that dune experience without anyone else there. Because the fact of the matter is that Sossusvlei, it's a national park. So yes, you do see other travelers. It is amazing and magnificent and really impressive. However, for people who want that solitude, Volvidans is really hard to beat. Boulders Camp is the most remote of the Volvidans properties. It's ideal for honeymooners. There's only 4 units, and it is really spectacular. It's really beautiful. So for people who are looking for a very private experience, combining this with Okierongo River Camp or with Swakopmund, with the Skeleton Coast, with Windhoek, they're on an itinerary that they just aren't going to see other people, really. It's quite amazing. And then, of course, because you're in the desert, the rooms are all open. There's nothing to be afraid of. I had a headlamp on one night when I was at Volvidans and was sitting out on my deck and was about a foot away from an oryx staring at me. So that's about the most threatening thing that you would get. Also in this area, in the Namibian, is an amazing, amazing experience called the Toktoki Trails. Tad and I did this last year, so if you have specific questions, please let us know. It's a really phenomenal experience. It is a desert walk, 2 nights, fly camping, ultimate safaris. Some of our guides are licensed to guide on the Toktoki Trail. So your clients can, this is Orlando right there. So Orlando is licensed to guide on the Toktoki. So your clients can travel with Ultimate, they can have their Ultimate guide throughout the trip, and if they want to build the Toktoki in, our guide stays with them. So that's a pretty unique experience, and there aren't a lot of guides in Namibia who are licensed to guide on the Toktoki unless they're employed by the Toktoki Trail people. This is the camp setup. The food is awesome. They can cater to special diets. It's home cooked. It's so tasty. This is your bedroom, which I think this is one of my top 5 experiences in Africa. They set up this little sleeping area and they disperse them throughout the dunes, so it is relatively private, and there are drop toilets that people share, and there is a bucket shower. But every morning they come and bring you hot coffee or tea, and you have hot water to wash your face. That bedroll is so comfortable. It's really, really beautiful. And you are completely out in the middle of nowhere. I absolutely love it. We're just going to touch really briefly on some secondary destinations that are good for repeat travelers to Namibia. Birgit's going to talk about this a little bit.
Yeah, we've been getting surprisingly quite a few inquiries for the Fish River Canyon and Lüderitz, and not that we wanted this so far south, but it is far south. So we tend to arrange it for photographers because they have very specific ideas about the photography that they want to do, like this diamond ghost town. But it is a long distance down. Only private charters are possible unless you fly with Air Namibia to Kommerskop, but you still can't get to the Fish River Canyon. It is spectacular, but the entire Namibia is spectacular scenery. So clients aren't missing out if they're not seeing the Fish River Canyon. Everything has its merit in its own special, unique way. And it is only the second largest canyon after the Grand Canyon. So, yeah, so that's my 5 cents worth. And the Caprivi region is another one of those very special, unique destinations. It's like it doesn't fit Namibia because it's so lush and it's so full of water, and it's quite remote. It's quite a distance to get there. We found repeat guests love it. People that want to combine Namibia with the Zambezi region, Zambia and Livingstone enjoy this route. And birders, I mean, there's a lot of birding and endemics here. It's also the only place in Namibia where you find one of the last big 5, the water buffalo. You don't find them anywhere else in Namibia.
Birgit, do you want to talk about the mobile camping?
So yes, so we do mobile camping. We don't do camping safaris. It's important to note that our mobile camp setup is usually done because we want to go to some very wild and remote places, usually set up for small groups. You see it's a very rustic dome tent, but it's going to have stretcher beds in it. Clients aren't expected to pitch their own tent. The catering is still very top-notch. This camp was set up in the Spitzkoppe. We did this for a photography group who want to spend a few nights in the Spitzkoppe just focusing on photography and not mission to the camp each day. So our favorite places to arrange camps like this are usually the Damaraland, because there we can go to some pretty far out wild places, the Kaokoveld. There's a spot we use in the far south of the Namibian, but we wouldn't go camping in Sossusvlei and Etosha. There are some great lodges there, and it's not worth it because the campsites are very busy, noisy, and that defeats the point of this whole wildness of getting away from it all.
Birgit, can you see that slide? There.
So Lindy, you want to give a comment there? Yeah?
Okay. Can you see it?
Yes, I can see the cycling. Yes. So we're very excited. We're starting doing more active tours, both hiking, walking specific, but also mountain bike tours. We've got a trailer which can take all these mountain bikes around. We hire them. They are hired according to the specification of the guest, height, body weight, length, do they want cleats or pedals. We're using a local Namibian guide, cycling expert. You actually see him whizzing past in the top there, as well as accompanied always by our own guides and our support vehicle. We've had some tours with great success, and we cater them to all fitness levels. Our cycling guide is very good at determining just the endurance level, and because we've always got the support vehicle there and our guides around, it's not going to be all day in the saddle, but only selected scenic routes, ensuring at all times it's about the fun and exploration rather than a marathon session. Though we can create marathon sessions as well if people want. We've had some very fit guides, so we can cater to that. But we're very excited about redeveloping this and really going full steam ahead with our cycling tours. And they are all tailor-made. We don't have any scheduled tours. So they're very much tailor-made, so small groups are best.
For those of you who actually have some pretty hardcore travelers, we could probably get Orlando on a bike, and your clients could do a biking trip with the former captain of the Namibian national soccer team. And I would venture to say he could probably keep up with almost anyone. He's super fit. So there's some really cool opportunities here.
So I won't Orlando now.
Yeah, you're not going to see me on a mountain bike in Namibia doing this. Nope. So something else that's really special, Ultimate Safaris has a licensed nonprofit arm, the Conservation Travel Foundation, and this is something that's really special. 100% of the funds go to the projects that Ultimate Safaris has selected, and our staff donates their time to help manage these and work on them and approve them and run the trust. Some of the projects, there's Tristan up in the corner with the principal of the Grootberg Primary School. That's a really special project with the computer center. And man, some of the projects that we have done are really amazing. Supporting the lion guardians during the drought months in areas where there is a lot of conflict between the cats and the population, the local population. So there are in fact lion guardians to help ease that that interaction. We provide financial support to CCF, to Africat, a lot of the Save the Rhino Trust. So something that is really cool that you guys can do is if you'd like to build in a donation for your travelers, if they're going to the Grootberg Lodge and you want to build in a donation, we can take them to the school and on behalf of your company, you can provide a donation. Or if you have a specialist group, if you want to create a group in a conservation safari and build in a $500 donation to Save the Rhino or whatever, we can craft an itinerary that incorporates a conservation element and incorporates the trust. And there's full information on the website there. We'll be sending a follow-up email, and this link will be in there so you can see different ways that your travelers can get involved in this. And like I said, it's really unique. It is a legally registered nonprofit, so this isn't something that it's completely monitored, and it's a really great way because a lot of these areas that we're going into are really delicate wilderness areas. And for anyone who's been to Namibia, you know that the landscapes, the wildlife, so much of it is in a really fine balance. And with almost half of the country under conservation status, we need to work really hard to keep it that way. And also preserving the cultural, making sure that the Himba can continue to live like they do and that can be sustainable. So this is something that's really near and dear to everyone at Ultimate Safaris. So as I mentioned earlier, you can see in the upper right-hand corner there, the agent login. That is going to be live very soon. Birgit is plugging away at that. I know that's a really long and tedious process. So that will, that will be,
I'm nearly there.
You're almost done. So that will be a really great resource. And in the meantime, please visit the Ultimate Safaris website. There is gobs and gobs of information. Like I said, everything's trade oriented, so what you find on the website is simply fodder to help you in your sales process. Same thing if you visit our Kusini website. We have a trade login only because we want to protect the rates because our net rates are hidden there. We will be sending out that login. It's just a general login for everyone. We'll be sending that out in the email so you can access the information on those scheduled departures, the rates, it's all net. We have image galleries, all of that. So that'll go out to you shortly here. And then Tad's going to hop online right now. If you guys have any questions, you can type them into the question box, and Tad is going to read those. He has access to those, and then Birgit and I can answer those for you.
Hi guys, excellent presentation. Thank you very much. I'm really even more excited to return to Namibia in May, so well done.
I'm so jealous. I'm not going to speak to you after that.
Good thing we're in different parts of Seattle today, Linz. So we just have a handful of questions here, and I'll let you guys answer if I cannot. First one is about the vehicles. Just a question about do we have tiered open vehicles, and if so, why not? Linz, I think you could probably answer that.
We don't, because the open vehicles, our vehicles are designed as long-distance driving / game viewing vehicles. Namibia is incredibly dusty, and also the climate is, I mean, it can be extremely hot, or it's a desert. It can be extremely cold. So we find that for our style of travel, we utilize the closed vehicles with the air conditioning and the pop-top. When our travelers are on a driving itinerary and say they're staying at Anguma or Angava or a Damaraland camp or Mawani, they utilize the tiered open vehicles on game drives. So it's a combination of the two, and the appropriate vehicle is used at the appropriate time.
Great answer, and very true. So next question here. Since the ultimate Kaokoveld itinerary covers so much in that area, is it too much to add additional nights at the Kaokoveld and Skeleton Coast camp for clients really keen on exploring this area? Maybe Birgit.
Why don't you, Birgit, answer that, please?
Yeah, so it already includes 3 nights at the Kaokoveld and Skeleton Coast camp, and the rates are based in such a way that it's actually starting at Kaokoveld for 3 nights. In order for people to customize the pre and post arrangements, we find a lot of people are interested in doing Sossusvlei first and then getting up to Kaokoveld. If they want to spend a week in Kaokoveld, by all means we can arrange it for a few nights before, but it already includes 3 nights Kaokoveld. And it's the same with post the safari. You can add Etosha or Kundima as well. And we found that this trip especially lends itself well to customization on pre and post add-ons.
And I think you felt like you could spend an extended period of time at Kaokoveld. I think the issue for this coming year is getting space. So if you have travelers who are really keen to stay at Kaokoveld for an extended period of time, they better start planning really far in advance. And I think something that we didn't mention with that new property that's really important is that it is on the boundary of the Skeleton Coast Park. It is actually nowhere near the coast. With that 3-night stay, I mean, as the crow flies, okay, on a map it doesn't look like it's that far. But with that 3-night stay, the visit to the coast, it's actually a plane flight out to the coast. The drive is very, very long, hours to get to the coast because of the driving condition. So with that 3-night stay, they are experiencing the desert-adapted elephants and that area that the camp is actually in, as well as doing the excursion to the coast. I think if they added extra days, they would simply explore more of the area around the camp and do more of the niche game viewing.
Okay, thank you guys. So this is a question regarding the Toki Trail. What level of fitness is required? And I can answer that initially. As Lindsay said, we both did this about 1.5 years ago. I'd say that really for anybody that's in a moderate level of fitness, it's very doable. There really is only 1 full day of trekking, and even that is actually broken up by a long period during the heat of the day for a siesta. So they actually set up a big, huge tent for lunch and an afternoon break during when the sun is at its peak and it's the hottest because you are, out and exposed. So you're able to, to spend, really, I think we spent a couple of hours, 2.5 hours relaxing, having cool drinks, having lunch underneath this shaded area, and then continuing on that afternoon to our campsite. So, Linz, maybe you can remember the exact mileage, but I'm thinking it's, no more than 10K total for that long day.
Far. Yeah, it's a maximum. It's around, you're walking around 5 to 7 miles, depending. The walking itself isn't as challenging as, for me, I am a true Seattleite in the fact that if it's 95 degrees and dry and I'm walking, I can feel it. So for me, the actual fitness level of the walk and the hiking was not that challenging. It was the conditions. So if you have travelers that are sensitive to the heat, then they can go during a cooler time of the year. The Toktoki does accept kids, and clearly I wouldn't send little kids, but teenagers who are interested in doing active trips with their parents, it's a really cool experience. So I would really recommend that. I mean, Namibia is incredibly family friendly in terms of there's really only malaria in the far, far north. Namibians are great with children. We had an amazing safari, and at the time my son was 3.5. It's a really great family destination. Most lodges have accommodations for families and family units, and with older kids, building the Toktoki would be awesome.
Another question regarding Toktoki is what is the recommended accommodation before and or after the
Yeah, we usually use Volvodans. Volvodans is very close to where you're doing the Toktoki, so adding something a little nicer like a Volvodans or the And Beyond property is definitely recommended.
And then a question regarding mobile tents or the mobile safaris, and I can answer this if the question as to whether the clients have to erect their own tents, which no, they definitely do not. The Ultimate Safaris team will have those tents erected and ready to go by the time clients arrive to their campsite, and it is fully catered. The food, I have to say, was, again, it's always amazing what these chefs can do in the middle of nowhere with relatively limited equipment, cooking equipment. But we had an incredible dinner. Basically, I think we had a 3 or 4 course dinner on our mobile trip before the Adventure Travel Summit. So it is a fully serviced, fully catered, relatively, I wouldn't say luxury, but it certainly is. You're not taking your own North Face tents and having to manage your own equipment and putting it up and taking it down. So it is fully accommodated.
It's very comfortable.
Absolutely. Let's see here. A few more questions coming in. How do you guys combat the issues with space availability being such a problem in Namibia because the properties allow for such large allocations and extended provisional holds for big groups?
Birgit, do you want to address that?
Oh, yeah, no, look, that is a real issue. I mean, we tend to just try to turn itineraries around, work around it. We have a very good relationship with, the operators where we try to, really make a plan and resolve space. But yeah, it is a fact. There are certain lodges that are holding allocations. We are talking to the managers because if it keeps up like that, they're becoming unsellable to the FIT business. But we usually tend to change things around, maybe start with the south, then start with the north, but really try to find ways to make things happen. Having said that, this year has been a good year, not just allocation-wise, but August, September, October is filling up at key lodges. In places like Okunjima, which doesn't take allocations, it's still a very once-in-a-unique destination that is full with FIT. So now's the time to plan your trip for next year.
Yeah, and also something to mention, a great way to avoid some of that congestion in terms of accommodations is to look at the green season. And if you look at the Kusini website, we have a lot of information on green season travel in Namibia, and there are some excellent values to be had. Ultimate's worked with a lot of our top choice lodges to negotiate discounted rates in the green season. And if you can get your travelers to travel then, they can save up to 30%. And weather, often it just isn't an issue in most of Namibia unless you're going to the extreme northwest. So that's a really great way to work around that issue too.
Okay, another question regarding the Kaokoveld area. Is there any advantage to adding Serikafima to that itinerary?
The Okavango River Lodge is in the adjacent valley to Serikafima. So activity-wise, and kind of scenery-wise, it is a parallel experience to Swakopmund. If people wanted to, logistically, it's really hard to add Swakopmund to that itinerary. I mean, if they did it on an FIT basis rather than the scheduled departure, it would be possible. However, on that scheduled trip, it would have to be added as a pre or post. And I really think it would be a little bit redundant just because the Okearongo River Lodge is literally over the mountain pass in the next valley. So that's kind of, we've gone with that property because also, you know, for space and availability, it's a privately owned lodge that we want to support, and it does have a really unique experience that would be, you know, that would be similar to Swakopmund.
Okay, and last question, is there a minimum number of packs required for mobile camping, and where can this be done?
Birgit, do you
want to answer that? Yeah.
Yeah, there's no minimum required, but cost-wise, you would want to work with a small group of 4 to 6 at least. Because the thing is, we tend to have a support team. You know, we want to create a whole comfortable experience, and not clients pitch their own tents or make their own units. So there comes a support team. If you have only 2 people, it gets costly. Having said that, we have arranged this before. You know, you start to work out the value of a tented camp experience versus the costs, and you also want to manage the expectation of guests. And if you're only 2 people and they get these dome tents and they realize how much they paid for it, they might not appreciate it as much as a small family group or a small group of photographers.
That's a great point. Thanks. Thank you, Birgit. Jeff, you've asked too many questions, so no more for you. I guess we're done. Lindsay and Birgit, if you want to wrap it up, thank you again.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining, and what we'll do is we've been recording this, so Tad will process that and get that up on the Kusini website. You'll see the multimedia tab where all of our webinars are archived, so you can go back and refer to this if you want to or need to. And what we'll do is we will send out a follow-up email. There's a really great video that the WWF put together on the conservation story of Namibia. We're going to send you the link to that, as well as a whole bunch of other information, Birgit's contacts, Kristen's contacts. He right now, unfortunately, wasn't able to join us because he is down in the diamond restricted zone doing some, I don't know what Tristan does when he goes and explores these areas, but I think he's doing some fishing and some adventure activity.
No.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's Meo Bay. It's the south of Swakopmund. We think it's a hidden skeleton coast experience. We're talking 100-year-old shipwrecks, whaling stations, abandoned diamond camps, dunes that crash into the ocean kind of scenario. So I'm very jealous he's there right now.
Yeah, so you'll probably hear more about that soon, but we'll be sending you just a lot of information on Ultimate. Tristan is attending. We are Africa, and Ultimate will also be at Indaba. So please, you know, seek him out and shake his hand and meet him if you don't already know him. Tad is going to Indaba this year for Kusini, so I will miss seeing all of you guys there. But thank you for joining us. Thank you, Birgit, for calling in from Windhoek. You can now have a glass of wine and retire for the evening. So thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.